I said that there were 4 parts to do with post-flight planning. The third part is what we call the FLOQ, F-L-O-Q. Get it? FlyQ is in FlyQ. FLOQ network. What the Floq network does is it allows you, and this is totally optional, this allows you and your friends to jointly agree that you'll allow each other to see each other's flights. Now, of course, this is with your bunch of buddies. This is terrific. If you're doing this with a flying group, it's very handy, especially if you share a same plane. If you are a CFI, being able to track what your students are doing is incredibly powerful to do. There's a lot of uses for this, corporate flight department, but for most of us, it's really just going to come down to just plain fun. That most of us fly either with other people or a lot of our friends are pilots, and this allows you to track them. So before we talk about that, though, let's talk a little bit about privacy, because that's been very, very important in the design of this. The main thing is, let's hit the profile button. It says My Profile. It's on the upper left side of the screen here. When I type My Profile, it pulls up the profile for me. So the first thing you see at the very top is the 3-segment switch. It goes public, semi-private, and private. The default setting is semi-private. What semi-private means is that your tracks will not be shared by anybody without your permission. It basically means that nobody will see your information, at least not most of the information about you, or your flying, or anything else about you, unless you specifically allow them access. People have to specifically ask for access, and you have to grant it to them. If you absolutely want to make sure that nobody ever sees anything about your flying, no problem. You switch that to private, like that. When it's on private, you can look at your flights on however many devices you have that you've logged into, but nobody else can look at them. Okay, they are private just to you. In fact, no one else will even see that you're in the system. Semi-private, though, as I said, does give a little bit of information about you out. It basically tells people that you exist. It gives your name, it tells people how many flights you've taken, and what your home airport is. That is simply so that they can know that you're there and request to allow you to allow them to follow you. Okay, so we'll talk about adding friends in a second here, but the default setting in the application is semi-private. So your flight tracks, your flight plans, obviously credit card information, your address, none of that stuff is ever shared with anyone. Okay, so but the semi-private setting simply allows you to be asked to follow from other people. And if you want to use private, feel free to do that. Private simply means nobody will even know that you're in the system. The third choice, public, isn't something that most people would use. That's the ability to allow anybody, without even asking your permission, to follow you. Okay. So again, the default setting here is semi-private. Now, of course, if you want to do anything useful with the Floq network, you have to have people following your flights, or you have to follow them. That's kind of the whole point of the exercise. So to do that, next to the My Profile button at the top is a button that says Friends. Tap on Friends, and what the system does is it shows you 4 different tabs. The first tab shows you who you follow. So right now I'm following 2 different people. It also tells who is following me, John Rudder, not too surprisingly. It has a tab that shows me suggestions. I'm not going to use that right now, but the Suggestions tab takes a look at people who are flying at your home airport or in your area, and if they're semi-private or public, it shows their names to you and you can request to follow them. Or what you can do is you can type in the name of somebody. So for example, I'm going to get out of flights here for a second and point out a couple of things. When I go to the Flight Following tab, notice that I move from, well, let's go back to this. On my flights, the default, I have 132 flights. If I were to tap Flight Following, there are suddenly 225 flights on the screen. Why is that? It's because I'm already following one person. You saw him listed earlier. It's my friend Jeff. So Jeff's flights are right here on the screen, intermixed with mine. So right now, there's one person that I'm following their flights, it's Jeff. If I want to add somebody else, I hit that Friends button, and I see them listed there. And another friend of mine is a guy named Mike. So his last name is this. So I type his name, hit search. If you know someone's email address or even their home airport, the search system will also find based on that. And again, if your settings are set to private, your name doesn't ever show up in any search list. Only if it's semi-private or private. So in this case, here's Mike. Typically, as I said, people would be set up so that their accounts are semi-private. You have to ask for them. Simply for the purpose of recording this video, Mike allowed me to set his account very temporarily to public. So there's a button on the right-hand side that says follow. Normally it would say ask to follow. And when it's asked to follow, he will get a message, both an email and a notification within FlyQ, saying, Steve Podrachik wants to follow your flights. Is that okay, yes or no? And unless he says yes, I never get to follow his flights. If you are set to public, though, you can just hit the follow button and immediately follow him. So remember, let's go back to our flights tab here. We previously had 225 flights where I was just following Jeff. The screen is blinking for a second, meaning it's refreshing itself with new data. So it's going to now take those 225 flights, which are mine and Jeff Mirsapazi's, and add Mike's flights onto them. So now we have 343 flights in the system, and here are some of Mike's. So now we have two people that we're following. We're following Jeff and we're following Mike. But say that for the moment I just want to take a look at some of the flights that Mike has taken. I can type Mike into the system right here. So I just type Mike. Right now it will only show me his flights. So let's see if we can find some that look interesting. That's not bad. That looks like a fun flight. Alright, so here's a flight that he made. So since he allowed me to follow him, I can hit the play button right here and it will download the track and it will show me what his flight was. And again, I can do that in 2D and in 3D by using split screen at the same time. And use the playback system to move things along a little bit, show the flight over water, whatever it may be. Okay, so that's the ability that you have by linking things together. Again, you can really see, you can begin to actually relive flights that your friends take by taking a look at them. It also makes it very easy, of course, if you have a photograph associated with the flight, you can see the photos of the flight. And you can imagine the possibilities if you're a student pilot or a CFI, that it's extremely helpful to do that. Okay, let's go back to single screen here. I'm going to turn the simulator off and go back to my flights menu very quickly and get rid of the filter. So now we have 343 flights total being taken between Jeff, between myself, and between Mike. And remember that heat map feature that shows you where people have flown. So if I tap that button in the upper right corner, it'll show me a much more elaborate map. So a lot of flights taken in this area. But to be willing to bet, an awful lot of flights taken in the Pacific Northwest too. So again, if we zoom in, we see things like PLU. So if I want to know who's flown to PLU, I tap on that. It looks like Jeff and Mike have both flown there recently. So this would be a great opportunity to, again, talking about kind of the social aspect of this. I can say something like, oh, maybe to Mike, there are a couple of buttons on here. One that looks like thumbs up, so I can give him, congratulations for a nice flight. Or I can hit the comment button and say something like, was there a crew car? Best place to eat? Hit post. And now that's listed there. And these are my notifications, by the way, in the corner of the screen here. So these things are totally unrelated to anything social, just telling me, there's a new runway at Payne. It's telling me there's a new video posted that talks about the logbooks. It tells you things like new chart data is available and so on. It would also tell you if you made a comment to someone else's flight, in this case to Mike's flight, Mike would get a notification saying, hey, Steve has a question for you. He's made a comment, take a look at it. And you just tap on it and it goes right to it. So that's kind of the social aspect of it in terms of both the heat map and the adding comments and likes and so on like that, and filtering.